My name is Dr. Raoul Mclaughlin, and my subject is the Roman economy, including trade beyond the imperial frontiers. I have published several books on this subject. I am a member of the Council of the Classical Association of Northern Ireland. The question is, how did the Romans finance their empire? Modern historians have estimated the expense cost of the Roman Empire using ancient information about pay rates, army size, and other outlays. It is calculated that the Roman government spent about 1,000 million sesterces per year on its essential costs. That is 1 billion sesterces. The main expense was the cost of maintaining about 30 legions, and up to 300,000 professional soldiers in full-time military service. It is estimated that up to half of Roman spending was on the military forces needed to defend and control the empire. This is understood. But how did the Romans raise the funds needed to pay these costs? In the time of the emperors, the Roman regime was heavily reliant on international trade. Pliny the Elder, who served in the advisory council of the Emperor Vespasian, reported that 100 million sesterces of bullion were exported from the Roman Empire every year to pay for products from Arabia, India, and China. This export figure represented about 1/10 of the finances needed to fund the entire Roman Empire. The Romans encouraged this trade because, in the short term, Eastern commerce created highly lucrative revenues for the imperial government. The geographer Strabo, who was an associate of the Roman governor of Egypt, provides further evidence for the scale of Eastern trade. While on a tour with the governor, Strabo learned that over 120 Roman ships were sailing every year from Egypt to India and beyond. Evidence of the value of the cargoes returning from these distant trade dealings is given in a legal contract known as the Musaris Papyrus. This document records that a single Indian cargo brought back aboard a Roman trade ship called the Mclaughlin was valued at almost 9 million sesterces. A fleet of 120 Roman ships returning from India would feasibly have imported Eastern goods worth over 1 billion sesterces every year, 1,080 million sesterces. The Romans imposed a 25%, a quarter rate, import tax called the tetarche on all international goods crossing the imperial frontiers. So commerce on this scale must have raised at least 270 million sesterces for the Roman state every year. This is between a quarter and a third of the revenues Rome required to maintain its empire, sustain its prosperity, and pay for the legions. This financial situation is confirmed by the surviving ancient evidence for Roman revenues. The total revenues of the Republican state in the mid-1st century BC were about 340 million sesterces per annum. When Julius Caesar conquered Gaul, he imposed tribute of about 40 million sesterces on the newly subdued territories. However, the greatest surge in imperial income came when the Emperor Augustus annexed Egypt, a realm which had produced revenues of over 300 million sesterces for the Ptolemaic kingdom. By adding these figures together, the total arrived at suggests that the Roman Empire must have been receiving over 680 million sesterces from its conquered territories. Additional income came from gold mines, which produced up to 90 million sesterces of bullion per annum during periods of peak production. During the 2nd century, the Romans also received up to 90 million sesterces from the overland trade passing through the Syrian city of Palmyra, which controlled a frontier route between Parthia and the Roman Empire. But it was Indian Ocean commerce that added the greatest total to Roman revenues. Taxes imposed on international trade passing through Egypt added a further 270 million sesterces to the Egyptian revenues and raised the income of the Roman Empire to more than 1,000 million sesterces per year. The historian Josephus was a client of the Flavian emperors, and he confirms that Egypt provided annual revenues greater than 570 million sesterces for the Roman state. This evidence confirms the value of international commerce and the importance of Eastern economies such as India and China in sustaining Roman prosperity. This rendered the Roman Empire vulnerable to any serious disruptions to the flow of international commerce. In the early 3rd century AD, the Han Empire of ancient China was destroyed by civil war, and the Parthian realm that ruled Persia was violently overthrown. Because the economies of the ancient world had become financially interdependent, these events had an impact on the Roman Empire. When Eastern economies collapsed, the international trade routes that sustained Roman revenues suffered an irreversible decline. Between 235 and 284 AD, the Roman Empire entered an era known to historians as the crisis of the 3rd century, the military anarchy, or the imperial crisis. In a 50-year period, there were over 25 claimants to the title of emperor, as the Roman army fought repeated civil wars to control the regime and maintain their finances. To summarize, the Roman Empire needed its trade with India and China to pay for regime costs and crucial military infrastructure. Over a quarter, perhaps a third, of the revenues received by Roman government came from taxing the large-scale international commerce that was conducted with Eastern economies. Without continued trade with the distant East, the Roman Empire was set on a course for long-term financial decline. For further information on this and other topics, please see my academic monograph, Rome and the Distant East, published in 2010, The Roman Empire and the Indian Ocean, 2014, and The Roman Empire and the Silk Routes, 2016. Thank you.